Welcome to our study on the book of Romans. This is Sonship Orientation. This is session number 103. We're going to get right to the verses because that's really what we ought to do. I'm going to show you the table of contents again, and we'll highlight the verses that we're looking at today. And here it is: to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. Now let me pause right there and say, all of those things that I just read to you, as you read through that, things ought to be popping into your mind about you knowing what those things are about. When it starts off and says to know wisdom and instruction, it means that you know that there is a wisdom and an instruction that exists and that it has value. When it talks about to give subtlety to the simple, you ought to understand that means the ability to see below the surface and to see the finer points of not just your Father's business, but also the policy of evil. I'm just kind of skipping through this, but that sheet that I gave you last week is a great review sheet for these things. That'll kind of keep all that in your mind. Now let's take our reading back up with verse 5. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Now on the board already I have put the level 3 diagram. Now I know that and it's not as important to me that you have to see it this way. Maybe you see it a little differently. I could see how someone would come along and take a wise man and put it under phase 1 and a man of understanding in phase 2, but I really don't see it dividing up that way, but it wouldn't matter to me if that's how you wanted to see it. At the end of the day, you just need to see all the information that's in these two verses. And here's the way this is going to start out. This is the way I see it. That phase 1, you've come out of level 2, and you are, at the end of level 2, you are a wise man. You've gotten that knowledge and discretion. Now you're going to come up here, and you're going to start phase 1 of level 3, and it says that that wise man is going to hear something. And by hearing, he's going to increase learning. And when that happens, he will now graduate to that 4th appellative of being a man of understanding. And then that man of understanding has something he's going to do. He will attain unto wise counsels. Now that's phase 1, and this is really one of the reasons I have it all like that. This whole thing is verse 5. What you have in phase 2 is verse 6. And that's when it follows this wise counsels, it says to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise, and their dark sayings. Now, when you look back with me at the PowerPoint, when you look at certain words in this PowerPoint, you realize those words are very general, and they're meant to be. That's why you have to have a little education to be able to look at that table of contents and say, that is a table of contents. You have to have a little education to be able to look at that and say, to know wisdom and instruction, I know what that is. I can tell you now, as a young preacher boy, I taught through the book of Proverbs. I could not have identified anything in this table of contents properly. But once sonship, though, opens up the door to all of that. And so as you begin to see that, the point I'm trying to make to you is, as you begin to see this and you understand what's happening and the order in which it's happening here, you'll know why the table of contents isn't being very specific. That's not what a table of contents does. It just kind of gives you information about the order of things that are being presented. It may give you a page number, but in any table of contents, it's all very general. You have to be able to look at those words and kind of know what's going on there. And those words are words that get used different ways. Knowledge and instruction and wisdom. Those words get used over here, they mean one thing, then they get used over here and they mean something else. Now I'm not just saying that to repeat myself, but I want to tell you this, because those words are contextually sensitive. Does that make sense to you? In other words, the context that you find that word in lets you know it can't mean the same thing here that it meant back here. When you're first starting out, if you're talking about instruction or knowledge or anything like that, you're talking about in a very beginning stage of it. But when you get toward the end of the curriculum and you're talking about knowledge or understanding or instruction, the context you'll find that in is going to tell you, now you're talking about not only something very specific, that context will tell you what that is. Okay, now I just want to point that out before we kind of take off down the road here. So here's what your homework assignment was. Knowing that it says a wise man, by the way, did you notice that when you get to verses 5 and 6, things are said to you differently than they were in all the previous verses? Have you noticed that? Somebody give me a way in which you see something different. And you might want to just look up here, because what's not in yellow is the way you've done it before. Any what, Pam?
Well, from 1 to 4, to know, to give, to, you know,
okay.
receive and all that. And then in 5 it just says a wise man will. You will.
Okay, is that what you're looking at, Linda? Is that what you, okay, Gloria's going, she's looking at it saying in verse 5 it says he will.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's not a, do you look at that and you think, well, this doesn't even look optional? Is that the way you're looking at that? Okay, like it's not a choice. Okay, Gloria says it'll just happen.
Yeah.
How many of you would like for it to be that way? It'll just happen. It'll just kick in. Yeah, okay. All right, now, okay, pretty much across the board. Well, I have bad news for you. No, I'm just kidding. Look, you're right. When you notice there's a change in this, now look, I'm going to answer these questions today, but remember last week, I told you, at least for now, I want you to start looking at level 3 as though, you know, you have level 2 and you have level 1. I'm not going to draw them up here, but this kind of stands alone. Remember me saying that last week? Just think of it at, it's not that it's disconnected. It's connected. But there is a bigger difference between 3 and the things that have come before, because 1 and 2 is very closely linked. And I'm not saying 3 isn't, but what's going on in 3 is something different. Now, I made another statement last week, and I'm going to give you this again before I ask for someone to give me the answer to the question I posed. I told you that by the time, I said, when you get to level 3, don't think about this the way you have viewed your education all along. Because the way you're prone to look at this, let's just do it like this. You would say, you know, because you have, remember you have the simple son, and then you have the young man. And remember, we even did this back then. Remember, we kind of talked about a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. Remember, we kind of did it that way? Well, if you're in school, now here's the danger of me making that analogy. If you're in school, when you get ready to go into your senior class, you know what you're expecting in class? More of the same, right? I mean, it may be a higher math, but you're just expecting to take Algebra 2 or advanced math. It's still science, but it's just this time it may be chemistry. But in this education, I don't want you to look at that this way. That's the danger with me trying to put this freshman, sophomore, junior, senior tag on this, because this is not more of the same. Here was the statement I made last week that should have made your mouths drop open and did not. And I don't know if it was because you were in a coma or maybe you expected it, but here it is. By the time you get through with level 2 and you have become a wise man, you are fully capable of functioning in your Heavenly Father's business to do anything you need to do. Okay, Pam's going, you know, okay, thank you. Okay, she wasn't here last week, huh?
It's almost like graduating high school.
Okay, see, I was waiting for somebody last week to make a comment like that. Gloria says, it's almost like you've graduated right here. If what I'm telling you is really so, you would almost ask the question, what? Why do we even need a level 3?
Higher learning.
Okay, now Gloria has you in college in level 3. Okay. But here's the deal. I don't want you to look at level 3 like I got more curriculum coming my way. Because what other curriculum do you need if you are able to fully function in your Father's business?
You need experience.
Okay, now, okay, you would need experience. Now, and by the way, that's a big deal, because it's one thing to sit in the classroom and learn, right? Another thing to go out there and do it. But now let me put some time elements on this. We're going to discuss this in the Scripture later, but let's do it like this. In a young man's life, here he is, and so here's this guy, and he comes along, and let's say that this is 12 years of age. In Israel's program, 12 years of age is usually when a son or daughter gets adopted. Then the father starts level 1 of their education. Now let's just create a business just out of the blue. Something that nobody does. Does anybody do blacksmith work? I have an uncle who does blacksmith work up in Arkansas. Is anybody here does blacksmith work? Okay, fine, we'll do blacksmith work, because this is a trade someone may have had in biblical days. So you have a son gets adopted at age 12, and then here's at age 18, and what's happening in here is really level 1 of his education. And you know what he's getting? He's getting all the skills that are necessary to be able to one day function fully in his Father's business, right? Well, in level 1, what are you getting? You're getting those 4 decision-making skills that you're going to be able to fully function in your Father's business. And when you get through with that, you'll be thinking just like your Father thinks. And that's what the dad wants to do here. Now, remember last week I talked to you about, we kind of go by that Greco-Roman style of education. You graduate from high school when you're about 18, and then you get 4 years of college. So at 22, 23 years of age, most people finish up their college work, and that's where we are. You know, that's the way we look at it. But in the Hebrew model of education, they don't stop it here. What they do is they go to 30. Because there's some things they add in there. It's not just he's doing it. When Gloria said a while ago, he needs experience. The Hebrew people realize that. So you know what they do? He does apprenticeship type work. And he's going to prove himself. Now here's the deal. By the time he gets to 30, this kid that's come up in his dad, so here's what you have. You have this, you have level 2, let me just get rid of that. You have level 2 taking place until he's 30. That means at 30 years of age, if we're going to make the same analogy here that I've been making to you back here, by the time this guy is 30 years of age, his dad is so confident in his ability to blacksmith that he could actually go clear across town, set up another blacksmith shop, put his son in there, and know there's nothing that's going to walk through the door that's going to confuse his son, that he knows exactly what to do. And not only does he know, he'll run that the same way his father's running this one over here. And when you go in, you'll be able to look at both of those businesses and go, are you in relation to the guy on it? Yeah, that's my dad. Well, I thought so, because you know what? Y'all are set up the same way. I mean, you know, so here's the question I posed for you. If you come out of this education and you really are a wise man, you understand there was a day when we would have said that's as far as you can go, because we thought wisdom was the ultimate deal. So a wise man, but the Bible has one more on top of that. So there's something that a wise man is going to hear. And my question to you last week was, it was great. We were waiting over there for Pam and Loopy to get there so we could unload her truck. And Kim is sitting out there and she goes, what was the question? I mean, she knew the question, but but I know what that was about. Y'all have been talking about it. And in the midst of talking about it, you kind of get to the place where you go, what does he want to know? And did you get there too, like that? Is there anybody that don't yell it out? Is there anybody that says, I think I know what that wise man is going to hear, that will cause him to increase learning? Now, wait. Before you answer, I have to tell you one more thing. Increase learning. We have to talk. There's three things we have to identify here today. We have to identify some things about what it means to be a wise man. We have to identify what he's going to hear, and we have to identify what it means when it says he's going to increase learning. Because that is, listen to me carefully, I'm not saying he won't learn anything, but I'm saying this is not describing the wise man learning a bunch of stuff. That's not what that's a description of. Okay, I'm not saying he won't learn something he didn't know. He will, but that's not what that's describing. So don't think about increase, because I know the way you look at this. When you read this verse, you would read it something like this. A wise man will hear and will learn more. Right? That's the way you would see it. Don't look at it that way. If you do, you're going to miss what's going on with this. Now that I've thoroughly confused you, anybody want to venture what the wise man is going to hear? In fact, when you, look, don't feel bad. Sorry, adverb. Badly. Don't feel badly. Because here we are in sonship orientation. All we're doing is surveying this doctrine, right? When you get to here, you're going to know exactly what it is you need. After today, you'll know what it is. But if no one ever told you and all you did was go through the education, by the time you got to the end of level 2 and you were a wise man, you'd be saying to yourself, I know that my Father has to tell me something, and I know what it is He has to tell me. And you'd be expecting this. And you would never say at the end of level 2, this is the end. Because there is something else you need to hear. And that's why it did, and because of this, when it says he will hear and will increase learning, don't you think it's, when I'm telling you don't look at it this way or that way, if it was that, you know what it would say? A wise man will learn. See, that's what it would be saying if it was about him. But it says he will hear. And that hearing is going to produce an increased learning. And that's not, it's not talking about him. Although he is going to learn something. But that's not what this is after. This is the difference in level 3. Okay, now, anybody want to take a shot? Amanda, I looked at Amanda and she went.
I know one thing. I know if I teach you something, I learn from it.
Okay, that's a true statement. That's a true statement.
Therefore, it may be that I am teaching
Oh,
my own.
oh, yeah, that's really close. That's really close. Now, let me, Linda, you going to,
Like he would be, a man of 30 may have his own family.
oh, see, y'all are headed right down the right track. That's why I said, what happens to any guy at 30 years of age? Here he is in his education, and we know by the time he's 30, he's able to go do everything in the Father's business that he needs to do. But in the meantime, while he's 30, we were talking about, well, let's see. Oh, okay, okay, Karen's going, on page 16. Okay. Here's the deal. What, Audie, you're what, 32? And how old is Brandon? He looked at her. He's gonna... the only comfort I can take with that is to go like, how old who? you know, it's not completely disconnected. Okay, all right. I'm just giving you a hard time. Brandon's 11. He's 32. So you know what? That's why I was telling Kim yesterday when she was trying to get it out of me. She was going like, she wouldn't let it go. And then Pam pulled up, and I went, well, time to go to work. And she goes, no. She's going to get to the bottom of this. I said, look, it's happening in your husband's life right now. Let's do the blacksmith thing. Here he is at 30 years of age. What has probably, remember I said there's exceptions to the rule. What has probably gone on with him? At some point, he probably got married. At some point, he had kids. And now, when he's 30, he's likely to have a kid that's just about ready to be what?
Trained.
Adopted, to be trained in the family business. So if he's going to do that, in view of that, he has to hear something. Huh? I want it. That's true, but there's something else here. Eric?
He's now taking on the father's role versus the son's role.
Okay, there you go. Now he has to hear, in view of the fact, now what Eric said is right, but y'all still haven't answered my question about what it is he's going to hear. But let's say it again for what Eric said, because he's right on the track. He's about to take on the father's role instead of the son's role. Because all the way up to here, he's been a son. Now all of a sudden, and that's what you were talking about a while ago. What?
He wants to hear that I want it.
Okay, well, that's what Karen is saying. And that's true, but there's something else. Hey, he does have to hear that. I know what y'all are saying, and I know why you're saying it, and that's true. Because if the kid don't want it, it's no good. I get that. But what the wise man is going to hear is not from his son, it's from his father.
He's going to know what his job is.
Ooh, that's really close. Gloria said people on the tape are going nuts because I'm not repeating your answers. And they always email me and they're vicious. Gloria says, what?
He needs to know what his position or his job
He needs to know what his job is, so what is he going to hear?
what you're good.
What'd you say, Randy? I'm in charge. I'm sure that's going to be a part of it. What, Linda?
Like where he's placed or what his vocation
What is
is,
his role?
where, like where, not just where he's at, but,
It's hard to put him
But he's got a piece of business.
Okay, Eric's saying because he's got a piece of business. You're headed down that same track with what you're saying. All of that's true, but you're thinking about this again from back here. I want you to stop thinking about, okay, now that we've discovered he's about to be a father instead of a son, now stop thinking about his son. And say to yourself, I'm that man of, sorry ladies, I'm that man of 30. I've got my own son or daughter I'm about to adopt into this family business. Now forget about the son or daughter and think for a minute. He's going to turn to his own father and say, you've got to tell me something. What is it he expects to hear that father say to him?
Exactly how to train.
Woo! There you go. He's got to know, how do I carry this out from the standpoint of the one teaching it as opposed from the one learning it? And who doesn't know there's a difference between sitting in the classroom and learning it and standing up front and teaching it? But that still doesn't tell me, that tells me the nature of what he's going to hear. Now, I know y'all are gritting your teeth. You're going, do you realize you are this close?
It's like the leadership or the authority that he has.
That's it, but okay, say that again now. It's like the
rulership or the authority that he has, that he is. Because he's got to take it.
Okay. You're saying it's the authority that he is now going to have as a father, and he's got to take that, and he's got, but that's I'm sure that's going to be in there. There's something else. Oh, y'all are right there, and I am extremely proud of where you are. I am, because you haven't done level 2 yet. Besides well done, yeah. Besides well done.
Well, is it like the commission is given that he gave to the apostles when he left?
Oh, see, yeah, okay. Now Bud's jumping me over into session 2 now.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. That means you're thinking about this just the right way. We'll cover it, but let's take up what Bud just said. He said it's like Jesus said to his disciples. Now remember, that's why I told you last week, don't be thinking about this in terms of the Bible or Jesus or Christianity, especially in terms of Jesus, because if you do, you weren't going to get to this answer. Do you know why? Jesus didn't have any kids. Let me ask you a question. What's the first thing he did? We'll cover it in session 2, but he's down there at the River Jordan, and he gets baptized by John, and it said the Spirit came in the bodily shape of a dove, and a voice came from heaven, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And when Jesus walks away from there, what's the next thing he does? Well, he is going to start his public ministry, and to do that, what's he do? He calls 12 disciples. And what's he going to do with them? Exactly. He's about 30 years of age, the Scripture says, and now, but he doesn't have any physical children, so you know what he's going to do? He's going to call these 12, and everything he's been educated in, he's going to turn around and put it in them. Yes? But that still doesn't tell you because now he has to hear this from his father. Y'all are great. Look, I'm not trying to discourage you with this. It's not like I can't be pleased with an answer. I am very well pleased, because you have to know that even folks that go through this don't always get this. Y'all have done excellently. This is great. For people that haven't gone through the doctrine of level 2, your understanding of things and your ability to deduce from there, this is really good. And by the way, if you're sitting in here and you're thinking, well, I had a thought in my head, but it wasn't anything like this stuff, so I guess, I must just be dumb as a stump. Don't think that. Let me tell you why. Because no one in this room has been all the way through this education to get us into level 3 yet. And if you don't, just because you don't know every single inch of this, doesn't mean you can't get it. You know what I've done is I've taken us as we get ready to go into first grade, and I jumped us up to 11th grade math, and you're actually giving me some really good answers about what the math class is going to be about. And if you're thinking, I just don't know how to work this algebra problem, I would be saying to my first grader, I wouldn't be worried about that right now. Are you with me on that? All right, so let me take you through this so we can see it. Because you are right there. In fact, the difference with what I'm after is so little that when I give it to you, you'll go, oh, well, that's what I was saying. Because it's the natural next thought. Karen?
Well, my mom and dad always said that it was difficult to see how well we did until the grandkids came along. Because the values that they instilled in us, we started instilling in our...
Okay, I understand that, and I'm going to say it again for the folks on the tape so I don't get bludgeoned. She's saying that her mom and dad always said, it's hard to tell how good of a job we've done with you until the grandkids come along and we see what you do. All right, and there's something to that. But what's happening now, what the son is waiting to hear from his father as he now is about to begin to function as a father.
Is it what he's going to be doing in the heavenly places? You know, his position?
No, as a matter of fact, level 3 isn't about anything to do with the heavenly places. Okay, passing the torch. That's true. That's true. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Huh?
You're released.
You're released. No, you're not. Okay, nice try, bud. No, he's not going to hear that. You're not released. No. I'm proud of you. I mean, there is going to be words of encouragement, but in fact, that's what Pam did. I'll tell you the story. We're taught, of course, you know what, her and Loopy, they're pumping me for information, right? We're unloading the truck, and then we go home and then they really crank up. Well, anyway, we make Pam go take a shower because, she's been in that truck, And so anyway, so Loopy and I are out in the front yard, and Billy says, Pam's down the bathroom, so she wraps up in a big towel, opens the door, and she goes, I figured it out! And Billy goes, well, you're going to have to put some clothes on because they're outside. So she gets dressed, she comes to the door, and she goes, I figured it out. So I go, what? She goes, what did you say?
I can't tell you till you get inside.
No, the word you gave me. It's what he just said. Encouragement. Encouragement. That's the word, and I understand why you're getting there. She said, it's encouragement. And you are going to hear words of encouragement, but you've got to hear something else. You've got to hear something else. Take charge, okay. And you know what? And you'll hear that. But those alone won't do it. Good job. I'm proud of you. Go get them. You're ready. The fact is, he's not ready to do this job until he hears this. That's why this can't take place until he hears this.
What is this?
That's what I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I have one caveat to tell you. What do we got left here? Oh, boy. And you know what? I killed myself on the time, but that's okay. I have one caveat to tell you, and then we'll do this. Are you ready? Now watch this carefully. Look back up at the PowerPoint, or you can look here on the board, but verses 5 and 6. When you look at this, and we're going to do it, we're going to spend most of our time on the issues in verse 5. Today we're doing the things behind the first semicolon. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. That's all we're going to get done today, but you're going to know all three of those issues thoroughly. Because you are right there. In fact, I could just end this session by just making one statement right here and you'd all go, oh!
Do it.
No, I have 11 minutes left. No. So, you're going to do that. Next week, We're going to do a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels, because you have to know something about what it means to be a man of understanding and what there's a twofold component to wise counsels. And you need to understand both of those. But the reason I'm saying this to you is we're not going to do much in verse 6 at all. I am going to do something, not much. And do you know why? Because verse 6 is particularly Israel in nature. Look what it says. To understand a proverb and the interpretation. And guess what? Your doctrine by your apostle is not given to you in proverbial style. It's given to you in epistolatory style. Paul has never given you a bunch of proverbs. Who gets that? Yeah, the remnant of Israel is going to get that. So verse 6, now you say, well then wait a minute. Then there's no phase 2 for us? There is. And it's going to come in under that dark sayings part. And there is something, and we're going to discuss part of that today, God willing, that you'll be able to see that there is an issue in your phase 2 of the education, but it is not precisely about this. I just want you to know that as we're doing this, I don't want you to hear what I'm about to say and then try to carry that all the way through, because right here a very sharp turn takes place that takes you right into the heart of Israel's doctrine. That's how they get it taught. You don't get it that way. So we're going to have to be careful when we move from what we understand in verse 5 to get into verse 6. Everybody with me on that? With that caveat said, with the just few minutes that we have left here, oh, by the way, on your notes, I had to make 2 corrections. It's page 2 of my notes, but do you see where Proverbs 1:5 is listed on your notes? Look at the paragraph, not the sentence, but the paragraph above that. It says, but don't think there is nothing for us in phase 2 of level, should be 3. My mistake. I didn't want to confuse you, and I was afraid that would. The second mistake in that paragraph is the last sentence where it says, the parallel issue gives us an explanation of an important aspect of the pastoral epistles which follow the book of 2 Thessalonians. What was I thinking?
You got that right. Is this right?
No, you have.
I got that was right on yours?
It's right on some, but not on the others. Yeah, it's right on Milton's page, level 2 on mine.
Oh, you know what? Because we had 2 printings, because the ink ran out. I had already corrected it. I saw it while I was printing it and corrected it, and then my ink ran out. Some of you got light copies. Well, the people that got the fresh copies, they got the 2 Thessalonians correction. Okay, I thought that was weird. How did that happen? Woo! Talk about dark sayings and mysteries. Okay. Well, okay. Now, I just wanted to correct those 2 things, because as you go through the notes on this, I didn't want you to be reading that going, what in the world was he doing? Okay. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, when you become a wise man and you move through the curriculum in the way that we've been talking about here, and you know that you're about to make a change. Before, you've been sitting in the student seat, and when Eric said that, that was right on the money. He's about to move from being a son to being a father. And we've talked all about that, and that's really good. But now, what I need you to see, let me just take you to just verse 5, and that way we can kind of hone in on this of what we're doing. This is a very necessary part of your curriculum, and this is the reason when we went back, we not only saw David learning that curriculum, but what else did we see? It didn't just stop with David. It had to go to Solomon. And that, remember, I said, because there's a reason that has to go forward. And here's why. Because that's what level 3 is about. Level 3 is not just a son getting fully educated in the business, but now, well, okay, let me ask you this question. Have you ever sat in a classroom and heard a teacher, I'm not saying they weren't a good person and they didn't work hard and they weren't well intentioned, but they just shouldn't be teaching. You ever sat in that class?
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen to a level 2 son who stops at level 2. He's going to turn around and try, to the best of his ability, to do it to the one that comes behind him. And if he doesn't hear what he needs to hear, he'll never be able to do it.
And how come David didn't teach Solomon that well?
David did teach Solomon. What was Solomon's problem? Anybody pick that up when we went through that? He did. And how do you know that? Because what David taught Solomon, he's the one that recorded it all in Proverbs.
Yeah, Solomon didn't get it.
That's right. He got an education, but he didn't get it in his inner man. That leads me, I'm glad you asked that, because I was wondering how to say this, and I've been wanting to say it for 3 weeks. Let me do this, and we'll take our break, and when we come back, I'll pull the curtain back, and you'll see it. So here it is. What, did somebody go, sure? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm thinking about it anyway. All right. What was I going to tell you?
About Solomon.
Thank you. When we get back over into Romans 8, it's not going to be very long before you're going to get this verse about prayer. And here's the thing. Prayer is going to become, it's not only going to, there's going to be dimensions of prayer that you really haven't thought about too much before, but it's going to become way more important than it ever was before. Because you can go completely through the sonship curriculum without your Heavenly Father. You can come to these sessions and hear everything I've got to say and go home and read those notes and leave your Heavenly Father out of the process, and this is where it will wind you up. And that's the difference between an education and a godly edification. Because this is not meant to work as just a bunch of facts and, you know, information. It's not like it's not just a textbook. That's why the father-son relationship is at the core of this. And you really are going to have to get in that. I'm not saying you're not now. I'm just saying you're going to have to get into that relationship where there really is something happening. Not, listen to me carefully, not that you have to dream up, not that you have to say, well, it must be working this way. This is something you're going to know for sure, and you'll know why you know it for sure. And it won't be because you talked yourself into it or because I talked you into it. There's something very real that's going to happen with you in your prayer life, with you and your Heavenly Father, that is going to make all of this go from just being a bunch of information to now it effectually working in your inner man, and you actually become what these words on the page have been talking about all along. And you say, how in the world does he do that? He didn't explain that to us, and we don't know. But it's his job to do that, and he just does it. I have a feeling if he did explain it, we'd be going, what? I just don't think we'd get it anyway. But he doesn't explain it. But I just want to say right here at the end of this session that when we go through this, you need to understand this is in the framework of a relationship with your Heavenly Father, and that is the non-optional part of it. Because it's, as we're discussing Solomon here, what was the difference here? Well, Solomon had all the facts. No, he didn't. which became very evident when his wives brought in the competing gods and the competing wisdom, and he went with it and succumbed to the policy of evil. So, this is more than just we're sitting in a classroom. The only thing we're doing here is getting prepped for you to go home and spend. Remember me saying this to you? That if all you do, in orientation, you're okay. Once we get back to Romans 8, if the only thing you ever do is come here and you never spend any time with your father about this, it's not going to work. Because I can't edify you. That's the Spirit's job. And that will be done. It's not hard. He's the one that's going to do it. You don't have to do it. You already know your part. Anybody remember that? You got to believe what he tells you. But you're going to have to spend time with him. Okay, anyway, not trying to bum you out here. It's okay. It's good.